Medication is just not gonna solve your problems. Hey fam, and welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today, I'm gonna be talking about how, especially here in America, I think that medication is used to cure way too many things sometimes. Things that probably don't need medication, and it's more so a band-aid to just mask up what's really wrong. Now, I know this is gonna be a controversial topic, but just hang in with me there. So this is literally just gonna be completely based off of my own personal experience, because that's all I can really go off of. But I think for me, in this situation, medication was not the route. Or I guess it was the route for a very temporary period, because I needed something, like some sort of a band-aid in order to get through. So whenever I started my corporate job, I was suffering from depression. I just didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I had zero desire to go to work. And if you know me, I'm a go-getter. I am very much a go-getter. I am up early in the morning, I'm working out, I'm doing things. I'm like, yeah, let's go. But corporate America kind of destroyed that inside of me, and it removed that part of me. And so it got to a couple of years working, and I just was in a slump. Like, my negativity was out of control. I was just upset and angry all the time. And, you know, a friend of mine recommended that I look into Lexapro. So that's an antidepressant drug. And once again, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. This is all just based off of personal opinion here. But so I went to a psychiatrist and I got on Lexapro. And you know, it made me happier. Like, it literally made me happier. I wasn't feeling those depressive thoughts anymore. I was still very frustrated in my job and wanted to get out, but at least I was able to cope, right? Like, I was making it through. And the funny thing is, I was actually on a really low dose of it. And it got to the point where, you know, I started to feel better. So I told my psychiatrist that I wanted to get off of it. So I got off of it, but then in came that depression again. And what I realized is I really couldn't cope without the antidepressants. Like, I literally, my body physically couldn't. And you know, throughout my entire life, I've been super lucky to have not had depressive thoughts consistently. Like, every once in a while, sure, but it hasn't been like, I wasn't one of those people that kind of grew up with a lot of generalized anxiety. I did not grow up an anxious person, but when I was working my corporate job, the anxiety was out of control. I just could not function anymore, which was really weird, right? Especially as someone who prides herself on having like a lot of like mental control, right? And being able to get through hard things and all of that. But I just couldn't. I physically couldn't, I mentally couldn't. And so I had to get on Lexapro again. And what I realized is, like, maybe this was just what the rest of my life was gonna be like. And that's okay. Like, I kind of just come to terms with it that at the end of the day, my brain just couldn't function without antidepressants. And the funny thing is, my psychiatrist basically kind of went along with everything that I was saying. So I would just say, yeah, I think I should go down in dosage. And she was like, okay, let's try it. And then it's like, yeah, I think I should go up in dosage. It's like, okay, let's try it. But I didn't really get much guidance, which I thought was very interesting. It was literally just based off of what I decided. I just told her what I wanted. So that was red flag number one, honestly. And then red flag number two just being the fact that I could not survive without it. And so a lot of people kind of describe, you know, mental health and getting on antidepressants and stuff as a way to help your organs. People use the analogy that, for example, if your vision's bad, you're gonna need glasses. So your eyes are an organ that just need a little bit of help, and that's why we wear glasses or contacts. I was like, okay, yeah, totally. And so the same was said for the brain, right? Some people's brains just need a little bit of help, which is where antidepressants come in. And sure, I totally understand that. However, what I found, at least this is for me, is that it was just completely masking the problem, right? Because I wasn't born with generalized anxiety and depression. That was never really a part of who I was and my identity, and maybe that's gonna change later down the line. I don't really know. And so this had developed for a reason. And so once I quit my corporate job and started, you know, being an entrepreneur and really delving into that side of things, becoming a real estate investor, After 3 months of quitting my job, I stopped taking Lexapro and haven't taken it since, and haven't had generalized anxiety, and haven't been depressed and anxious and all of that anymore like I used to be. And so what I realized is, you know, the Lexapro or the antidepressant was really just masking what was really wrong, which was the fact that I was not meant to be in that corporate job. I needed to leave. I needed to go. It was not serving me. That specific situation was what was destroying my brain, you know? But I find that in corporate America, the first thing that people do is prescribe medication. And I get it, like, it's the easiest thing to do. It definitely kind of, you know, masks the problem, and it helps you get through, it helps you get by, it helps you, if you are working a job that you hate, or if you are in a really traumatic experience, it helps you get by, kind of like aspirin would, right? But like with aspirin, usually you don't want to be taking it every single day for the rest of your life, right? There's usually an underlying root problem and root cause there. And that's where I think a lot of people right now are in places that are just fully destroying their mental health. But because they have to pay the bills, or they're trying to please their family, or because they're just trying to survive in this world, right? So they're taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. But it's such a disservice to the person, because there's usually something bigger underlying that's there that probably needs to be addressed, and they're not able to give themselves that ability to address it. And so honestly, I don't really know entirely where I'm going with this. This was just something that I was thinking about, that I definitely kind of wanted to put out there into the world and see if anyone else was feeling the same way or had gone through the same thing. But yeah, so I guess if that's something you're going through, like maybe you are in a slump right now and are taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, think about what the actual root problem could be, right? Like, why are you feeling that way? Is it your environment? Is it the people that you're around? Is it the work that you're doing? Is it the place that you're living in? Is there something there that needs to change in order to get your brain to feel better, right? Like, is there something else, like the root problem, the underlying cause, that's really what you need to be attacking to get yourself to where you need to go? So I know that was a little heavy, but I like to end every episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show with some daily gratitude, because daily gratitude changes your attitude. And for today, I'm just thankful because I'm actually in Houston at my parents' house. I am getting to spend Christmas with them, and I've actually spent a lot of time this year with my family, and you know, I can only really thank that to quitting my corporate job and becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a full-time real estate investor. So I'm just thankful for that. And don't forget, life is just way too short to choose clouds.